Hey y'all, welcome back. It is me, Britt Reacts, and today we're going to react to some real Theo, not baby Theo, but don't worry, baby Theo will be back. This is a clip from his podcast, The Scary World of Bride Trafficking in Asia. This is with Mariana Van Zeller. Let's see what's going on here. All right, I'm here. I just gotta... Okay, let's do it. Ready?
Take me into some of that bride trafficking, because it sounds bride. You're like, oh, congratulations,
Yeah,
and you're like
wedding.
trafficking. You're like, oh, this took a turn, in just one word. Take me through some of that. What do you kind of learn? Like, what took you over there in the first place? And then what's that relationship between China and Vietnam?
Yeah. So we started seeing these videos online of essentially these women, a lot of times girls, teenage girls in markets in broad daylight being nabbed from the side of the street or these markets and being kidnapped. Sometimes
real?
Yes, these exist. And against their will, you'd see them screaming and yelling. And we were, well, what is this? And we found out that a lot of them were being victims of this bride trafficking, where it exists because in China, for many years they had it started in 1970, they started the one-child policy. So this one, I remember seeing this one.
Look at this.
You see there's a woman there?
Oh.
And she's smiling.
How scary.
The lady
Sometimes
in the
it's their
hat
own
is
families
smiling.
that sell them. A lot of times they're just kidnapped in the middle of the streets and taken across the border to China.
And people can't help.
How? What? People are just
so
standing
it's
around.
a little bit, I think people decide not to help. There's also a tradition, which doesn't help the situation very much, but there's a tradition amongst the Hmong community which is terrible. But if you're engaged, it's a tradition that you kidnap your wife to take to the father and ask for permission for her hand. And it's sort of done with the acceptance of both families, and sometimes the woman is last to know. So what traffickers have been doing is that they've been using this cultural tradition to benefit their own actual kidnapping.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear nobody else complain about living in America. No one. This is so bizarrely wrong. Okay, I Googled this lady. She is a Portuguese American journalist. So obviously she's been doing some groundwork on this subject, this topic. She went to Columbia with a degree in journalism. She seems to maybe be well off. I don't know. None of that matters. Thank you for highlighting this. I don't know what else to say. Oh, I'm infuriated. The people just standing around filming, the people standing around laughing. The amount of people it's taking to get this girl on this motorcycle. It's like no one wants to stand up against this. Oh, my heart.
Been using this cultural tradition to benefit their own actual kidnapping.
Yeah, they're showing up like a mariachi band or something, and they think it's like part of the thing.
Exactly.
Oh,
a mariachi
and they're
band
actually
in
kidnapping
China?
these women.
And so they kidnap these women, and where do they? Were you able to find out more?
Yeah. So what happens is one-child policy. A lot of in China, if you had more than one child, you have heavy fines. So as soon as
I've known this. It says in Shenzhen, from recent years before repeal, the base fine for a second child could be at least 219,000 yuan, which is around 33,000 American dollars, which was about 6 times the city's average annual income. For wealthier families, the fine could escalate sharply depending on income, with some paying over 1 million, which is 150,000 plus. Jesus.
You got pregnant, people wanted to know if it was a boy or girl. And in China, culturally, men are the breadwinners. They're the ones who will take care of the parents when they're older. And so it's very important to have men and not women for them. And so there were massive amounts of abortions done if they found out it was a female. So nowadays, there are more men in China than there are women.
Oh, it's gotta suck.
Single men. And again, if you're single in China, it's looked down upon because you're not procreating, you're not giving your parents grandkids, and there's enormous pressure on these men to find wives. There just aren't enough.
But it's not even their fault. The government set it up so it's like, what do you?
I know.
Imagine the societal pressure making you feel so so pressured to not be single that you feel you have the right to kidnap your bride. You want to talk about the male loneliness epidemic over here, baby.
It's terrible, but then obviously the last resort is that they go into these poor communities in Vietnam and they pay these traffickers to kidnap them and pay them thousands of dollars to have these women. And the stories we heard were so sad. I mean, this woman who was trafficked, in some cases, again, the families actually sell them. I don't believe it was the case with this woman. She was trafficked. She arrived in this apartment in the big city in China, and she was immediately locked in a room. And the husband would rape her, would come in, and then she got pregnant, and then they took the baby as soon as she gave birth, took the baby away from her, and then she got another baby, and then took the baby away from her, and then she was obviously depressed, thinking of committing suicide, awful. And she, at that point, had given them 2 children. The grandparents were living in the house, too, and taking care of the kids. And she convinced them to let her go see her family in Vietnam, because she hadn't seen for like 6 years. And she did. And she had to make the decision. Do I go and see my parents in Vietnam and leave my kids behind? Or do I stay here as a kidnapped victim in a way that I can still have a relationship with her kids?
Wow.
And so it was awful, because she chose to go back to Vietnam knowing full well that she will never see her kids.
Yeah, because you raped her. She had these children. You've taken the children away from her. She has nothing. She can be around the children probably in a very minute way. Maybe everyone's better off. Oh my God. I'm crashing out. I am crashing out.
And so it was awful, because she chose to go back to Vietnam knowing full well that she will never see her kids again. And she was showing me photos, and it was just heartbreaking. It was really horrible. Sorry to bring it down this way.
No. I mean, it's just like we live in such... we all live in such different worlds so often, you know? I mean, you can literally be falling asleep at night in a warm bed and you're okay. And then somebody else somewhere else is getting on a train and having to never see their children again, you know?
Having to make that decision, yeah.
But how did it...
I love Theo because I just accidentally turned on closed captions. I didn't even know I could do that from my keyboard. He cares. He really cares. I mean, even in this still of him right here, you can tell he's being thoughtful about what he's asking. He cares about these events that are happening all over the world, and he uses his platform in such a good way. And, you know, I think he leverages his humor. He leverages his audience because of his humor by also having these very serious conversations and shedding light on these serious things. And I just think anyone who uses their voice, their platform, their audience in such a positive way is doing God's work. Like, it's kingdom work. And, you know, I love Theo Von. He makes me laugh so much, but I also have learned so much from watching his podcast, which I think what a beautiful balance that is, to make people laugh and to educate people. That has got to be like one of the best type of jobs. I don't know. That's me fangirling over him and giving him his flowers, because I just think he is a phenomenal person on the internet. Like, he's doing really good work on the internet, where there are people who should never be able to access the internet, you know.
But who the guy, if he doesn't have a wife, if he needs to have a wife, did he just want the woman only for sexual purposes? Do some of them, like in that situation?
In this situation, yes. In other situations, mostly it's because
they
of
want
having
companionship.
But other situations, it's also for companionship.
Okay.
Although it's harder if you're detained and kidnapped. It's harder for you to, take the woman out for dinner, I'd imagine.
Right.
But there are some situations where the woman sees themselves trapped, and then there's a lot of shame that goes with being in that situation, where then you prefer not to go back home and you just accept your new reality, which is awful. God. Yeah, it's very depressing.
Yeah, it's like that story you would see sometimes in movies where someone would get kidnapped and then raped and then brought back home, and then people would shun her because she had been raped.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah. And the same thing, actually, it reminds me a lot of the African immigration and even Central American migration, but particularly African migration, where I've done many stories about kids. One was a soccer trafficking story where kids were promised by these fake agents that they would take them to Europe to play in these big clubs, and then they'd get there and they'd sell their house, sell anything they have to pay the agent, and then they'd get to Europe and they'd be abandoned, right? But at that point, they were so just embarrassed because they were sort of the hope for the whole family, right? This is the child that's going to bring us prosperity. And then they were just embarrassed, so they never spoke to their families again, and they would just live in misery on the streets of Europe.
So that was a scam. They were taking people there. They weren't. There was no soccer. There was no setup. People had paid money to be a part of this thing, this opportunity. They made it look great with videos and pamphlets or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then there was nothing.
There was nothing. But the shame that's
well, how can I go home? I'm the one that I cost my family everything.
Yeah, exactly. So then these stories aren't told, and nobody knows that this is actually happening because in their minds, the family's saying, oh, he must have made it really rich. He's not contacting the family anymore. The stories that they keep hearing is of success. The same happens in the, migration.
This world is such a sad, tormented place. Nothing. Just get a job. Get a job. Get a job, get a life. Get a job and get a life. There is such a special, unique dungeon in hell for people who do things like that. And I mean dungeon. Oh, y'all.
That we see in Central America to the United States, or the people coming to the U.S. A lot of them they are hearing the stories of success,
right?
And so that's in many cases what they're not hearing, the stories of desperation and how hard it is to get here.
Yeah, they're just hearing the advertising, really, or the positive advertising. Are there brokers that are brokering those women in those countries?
Yeah.
Is it like a company that's like, okay, we need to try and get this many women a month? I'd love to know that.
Like, is there a quota?
How often is this happening over there?
It's really hard to get numbers. We spoke to organizations who are on the ground, sort of taking care of the victims. Some of them managed to escape and come back, and they say it's in the thousands, but it's impossible to know exactly how many. It is unbelievable. The craziest part of it is because our hands were sort of tied behind our backs in terms of reporting. We had the government minder with us at all times, a police officer, like everything we did. We went out in the middle of the night to try to film behind their backs. It was really hard. But we actually were able to contact a group of local journalists who were actually doing their own investigation, and they were mainly Chinese, and they were able to film undercover. So we saw them. They went and had meetings pretending to be buyers in northern Vietnam, and then they also went to some brothels in China, where you are given. They showed us. It was like lists and lists with photos of girls, their bodies, them. It's not like modeling, advertising.
Right, their height, their weight, their body.
But it's for girls that are for sale. And so it's he was seeing like a whole catalog of beautiful girls. Some of them looked like they were 14 years old. And they're going through the catalog, and then they can just point and say, I want this one. And then that person is delivered to you. It's crazy. And a lot.
I'm sorry, y'all. This is just so upsetting to me. As a woman, as a mother, as a citizen, it just is so upsetting to me that there are people on this earth that feel so entitled to someone else's life that they will kidnap it, pay for it, kidnap it, and hold it hostage for the sake of companionship and or creating life. And to create life in that way, don't even get me started to what you are doing to the children you're bringing into this world before they even arrive.
Just point and say, I want this one.
Good
and then
Heavenly
that person
Father.
is delivered to you. It's crazy. And a lot of them are being held basically at these brothels on the border in China already, where this guy also got access. So he went in, crazy video. He went in, it's a long corridor dark corridor full of rooms. And then the brothel woman, he told them that he was there to meet a wife. And the one woman opened the door, he goes in, he gets in, and there's like 3 or 4 women in there. And there's total darkness. He can't see a thing at all, and they're communicating very low, and talking to him and saying, what do you want? What sex do you want? Let's do it. And he was like, oh no, because he's a journalist, undercover journalist, and saying, I don't want sex. And she's like, please, they'll beat us if you don't have sex with us. And he had been locked inside at this point by the woman, the brothel owner on the outside.
So he had to do it?
No, and then he managed to figure out a way where he started knocking on the door and saying that he had to go, that something had happened, and came up with an excuse to leave. But even him, and he's an undercover journalist that covers the worst of the worst crimes, he was telling me it was one of the most depressing and nerve-wracking things he's ever done in his life. And these 3-4 women holed up in there in total darkness and forced to have sex with men that come like this. And then a lot of them are sold to become brides as well. Yeah, it's dark.
Is there regulation in those areas over that sort of thing?
They say there is, but obviously what we found is that there isn't.
And this is part of a new episode?
Yeah, this is.
I wonder how many of these women are sold to men in political, diplomatic position.
One of the episodes of this season. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So she has a show. Got it. I am so grossed out. I'm so angry at that. Okay, I'm going to go watch that entire episode. That just crushed me. And may anyone involved, anyone in any capacity involved in that, have the day they deserve. And I mean that in the worst way possible. My goodness. I love you guys. Thank you for watching. I gotta go. You go have the day you deserve. I mean that in the best way possible. Love you guys. Goodbye.